In this video, we are going to learn how to add a basic background and a Skydome light to our arcade machine model to be able to showcase it accurately. I'm going to start by adding a Skydome light. I'm going to click on Arnold. Make sure you get the Skydome light from the Arnold section. So I'm going to go to Arnold, Lights, and Skydome light. That's going to create this big circular light that encompasses our whole scene. We can increase the size of this light if we want to, or we can leave it at the default. It really depends on how big your object is and how big you're going to make your background. So I'm going to leave this on here, and let's see what our final image looks like with this white light. Let's look at this side of the model because I deleted some faces from here, but let's look at this and go to Arnold and render. And you get this sort of white look to everything. So it's a very washed out look where everything has the same amount of roughness and shininess, and it doesn't showcase your model accurately. This is what the model looks like in Substance Painter. And when you move the light around, you can kind of see how the shininess and roughness works, which you don't see in Maya. So we need to add an HDRI to this Skydome light. You can do this in the colors section of the Skydome, but before doing that, you need to download the HDRI. You can use one from Substance Painter. So if you go to Substance Painter and check the second to last option, these are your HDRIs. The one that is being used in Substance Painter right now is called Panorama. So Panorama is right here. This is the one that's being used here. We can right click and export resources and put this in our source images. So I put this panorama in the source images of my Maya project. I would suggest, if you have glass, to use this one, to use Studio 3, because that's going to give you a better effect for glass. So I'm going to go to export resource and put this in my source images as well. But any HDRI from these options will work. You can also go to Polyhaven. So Polyhaven is right here. And in the HDRI section, you have a bunch of options. I would suggest not using something that has a lot of color information like this one, which gives a warmer color. Use something that's more neutral, maybe an outside scene that doesn't have too much color to it, so that the color from your actual model comes through. I'm going to go back to Maya, and I'm going to just put in my, let's go with Panorama in this case. So I'm going to put the Panorama in the color section. You'll find it here. So the file type is EXR. So I'm going to put in Panorama EXR and click on Open. You don't need to change anything here. Just leave it as is. The one thing you need to change in the light settings is in the visibility. So set the camera to 0. You'll still see your Skydome over here, but if you go to Arnold and render, you won't see it in the render. So if I set it to 1, you see it in the render. If you set it to 0, you still get the lighting from this, but you don't actually see your panorama image. And once you set that up, you can rotate your light to get the lighting that you want to see. And let's set it to this. And you see it gives you a nice varied lighting to your object. When you're rotating, you can also hit stop on the render so that it's not rendering while you're rotating the light. But I'm going to leave this light like this, and now I'm going to create a background. To create a background, I am just going to use a plane, so polyplane, and I'm going to make this really big, scale it up, and I'm going to go to my polyplane settings and set the subdivisions width and height to 1 so that it does not have subdivisions. I'm going to go to edge mode, and I'm going to just extrude this edge and move it up. And then I'm going to click on this edge, which is kind of connecting the horizontal and vertical part. I'm going to actually move this higher, and I'm going to click on this edge, shift right click, and bevel edge. So go to bevel edge, and I'm going to reduce the fraction a bit and add a couple of segments. So we get this nice curve to the shape. You can add maybe 6 segments. It really depends on how big your plane is. And once you add that, let's look at what our render is going to look like. Let's look at it from this angle. So I'm going to go Arnold and render. And now we have a nice background for our render. And we can change the material of this background. You have basically two pretty good options for the material for this. I'm going to go to Edit, Delete All by Type History to delete the history for this plane. And let's pause this. Let's assign a new material to this. So one of the options is assign new material, shader, AI shadow matte. So AI shadow matte basically is a material that has a color and it catches your shadows. So it does not have any other properties, just has a color and catches shadows. So let's set this to be background color, and we can set a color in here. I'm going to set this to like a gray. And if I play this again, you can see that the only property it provides is a color and shadow, and you can then change this color or choose a color from the options to match what you want your object to look like. Let's stop the render and let's see another version of this. So I can assign new material, shader, and instead of AI shadow matte, I'm just going to assign AI matte. And AI matte is just going to give us a background color without the shadows. So I'm going to click on AI matte and let's say we give this a gray, and let's click on play to start rendering. And this is just going to give us a regular background color without any shadows. So either of these is a good option. It really depends on what you want to do. Sometimes you do want to see shadows, sometimes you just want to see your object without any of the shadows. Something that you could also do for your render is make multiple copies of your arcade. So you do want to see different views of this. So you can, if you have your arcade in a group, you can click on Control D on the keyboard. Let me just close my render out. So I can click on Control D to create a copy of this arcade. Let's move that aside. And we can place this in the same location. Let's say I want to see the back view of this. So you have one copy here, and let's make a third one. And this is how we can render our arcade. You could also render it one by one. So you could just have one copy per render, or you could render them out all at the same time. So now I have 3 copies of the arcade that I got just by pressing Control D, and I go to Arnold and render, and I can render out all 3 at the same time. This is up to you. Sometimes your lighting is going to affect this. The lighting won't be the same on all 3 renders, so you might want to do them separately, but this is how you could copy them if you wanted to. Let's select those 2 copies and delete them. The last thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to set up a render camera. So right now we're viewing this through our perspective camera, but I want to set up another camera so that I can move around, create lights in this section, and I can have another render camera that does not move, and I just use it to see what my final image is going to look like. You can create a new camera by going to Panels, Perspective, and New. And that creates a new camera called Perspective 1. And if you are, so in Panels, you can go up here and you can select which camera you're viewing your object from. I'm going to go to Perspective 1 and I'm going to set up how I want to view this object. If you want to see in the Maya window what view you'll see in the render, you need to turn on your resolution gate. So I'm going to turn on resolution gate. You'll see your resolution up here, and you will see this gate appear. If you don't see the resolution, make sure to click on this one. So this option right next to resolution gate, and you will be able to see what your final render is going to look like. So it's going to give you a nice box right here, and you can set up your object within that box. And if I render this out, it is going to look exactly the same as it does here. And you can, once you set this up, you can also go back to perspective, change things here. You can move your lights around. You can make this object different. So you can make all the changes here and then go back to perspective 1, which is your render camera. And you can see how that looks in your final render.